Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Welcome back. So today I have a special guest, Amy, again, and we're going to be talking all about PMDD and the different personality types that we can have, specifically socially, when we go into PMDD, and then when we're in our luteal phase and when we're in our follicular phase, and how that can translate into your relationship. I know this is very prevalent for me going into the dating scene. I can see my social calendar literally go up and down and all around in my luteal phase and in my follicular phase. So yeah, welcome back, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a very interesting subject.
Yeah, so I think we can start with, I have had some friends and things like that since the breakup with my ex-PMDD partner, and they're inviting me out. They're like, oh, you have time, can you do this and can you do that? And I've noticed when I'm in PMDD, I'll have booked some things in my follicular phase and filled up my calendar. And then I look at my calendar for the week when I get into PMDD and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it's kind of that question of, do I drag myself out of the house to do these things that I committed to doing in my follicular phase, or do I just, go ahead and say no? But I've noticed a lot of times when I turn down invitations or say, oh, no, sorry, I can't make it, there's this guilt that comes along with it. And then I'm not even enjoying the time that I'm staying at home because I'm feeling so guilty that I didn't do the thing that I said that I was going to do in my follicular phase.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think it's an interesting thing to differentiate a few different parts as well, isn't it? Because you have the socializing with friends, and then you have the dating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would depend on each person as well, wouldn't it? It depends on you and what you like and how you are with people. I mean, I'm not someone who dates too often. So going on a date when I'm in my luteal phase, especially new to the dating scene, probably wouldn't be the best option. Whereas someone who kind of actually enjoys going on dates and going into them environments, maybe they should go, maybe they should put themselves out there. But I think it's really interesting that you say about the guilt as well, because I've definitely experienced that, but I've also experienced the opposite as well, where I go and I wish I didn't go. And when I say I don't want to go, then I feel this relief. And that's where it's again, like everything with a woman and her cycle, PMDD, and just the whole cyclicalness, there isn't one size fits all, is there? It all goes back to that kind of intuitive, month by month, learning about ourselves, learning about that scheduling of, okay, when I'm in, one kind of one size fits all is the fact that you do know that you are a different person in luteal to follicular. So to start taking consideration of the nuance differences that you have, but then starting to be curious in that process, right? Of, okay, who am I in luteal? What would I enjoy? What will help me in a way if I am feeling kind of lonely? Should I push myself out? When should I rest? and knowing that it is kind of a dance of sometimes that's going to feel right, sometimes it's going to feel wrong.
I think it's interesting that you say that you're a different person. We are different people in luteal and follicular. I think for someone that is just accepting that they have PMDD, that's such a big thing to admit. Because I remember earlier in my journey, I used to try to be the same all month long. And I specifically with my partner, like I would try to have the same level of energy. I would try to do the same things because I didn't want my partner to call me out and say, oh, look at you, you're in PMDD. I guess we can't do this. Like, and me feeling the guilt. So I used to force myself, like you said, to go to those outings, do those social events. And then I get there and I'm like suffering in silence. You know, it's like I didn't even feel comfortable talking to my partner about it because I had spent so much time creating this facade that like, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. And I was just like, wanting to slide down a wall and crawl into my bed. So I think a big part of my journey about that self-acceptance was just really taking the pressure off of myself and admitting what you said, like I am a different person in my luteal phase than I am in my follicular phase. And I know we get so often we're misdiagnosed with bipolar, personality disorder, and it has such a negative connotation to it that we want to be as far away from that as possible and say, no, like I'm not that person. I don't have split personalities and all of these things. But a big part of PMDD is being different in each phase of your cycle and knowing that that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in all honesty, I don't even think it is just PMDD. I think it is just women as well, that we are, we are fluctuating from the high estrogen to the high progesterone, from the high energy to the low energy, from the extrovert to the introvert. And that the flow of the feminine is that, right? It's that we are ebbing and flowing like nature, like the moon, like the seasons, and the there's this rigidness of personality, isn't there? Because it's something that I've been pondering on a lot recently in relation to personality. What is my personality? Because who I am now is completely different to who I was 10 years ago. It's probably going to be different to who I'm going to be in 10 years again. So this rigidness of this is who I am does keep us stuck. And it is, I think a huge part of the prison does go back to the mindset, as you were saying. Like I've got the combination with clients before of like that one thing of like, is like, why is this happening when I'm not in PMDD? Like everything kind of being pathologized to PMDD, but also the thing of, as you said, I'm in luteal phase and I'm going out to this thing and I don't want to be here because I need to put on this mask and be this person I am in follicular phase, and I'm not. But I think a huge part of that is that barrier of I'm not accepted in who I am in luteal phase. But because, luteal phase Amy might be a little bit more sensitive and she is a little bit more like introverted and a little bit more melancholy, I would say. But it doesn't mean that she won't be accepted in certain environments as well. It's just learning to firstly, allow yourself to accept that this is who you are in that space, and then find them safe people that you can actually enjoy doing social things with that are okay in that time. Like one thing I really like, just sitting with a friend doing research and having like deep discussions in that time. I like that. To be honest, that's kind of who I am generally anyway. but but like, do you know what I mean? It's like find the people who you feel safe to be like, I'm not party person right now. I'm not extroverted. I want to sit and I want to observe. This is who I am. And if you can't accept that this is who I am right now, maybe it doesn't mean that you need to cut people out completely, but it might be a case of maybe you're just someone I see at this phase of my cycle and not someone I see at this phase, because and I think that's the nuances of the boundaries, isn't it? That we need to start loving and accepting ourselves and finding people who are gonna be able to love and accept us in whatever phase we're in.
That's so good. That is so good because I have been working with a lot of clients on this particular thing, meaning they're in a relationship and they're wanting to just spend time with their partner when they're in their follicular phase. And then they say, when I go into PMDD, I just want to isolate, just like almost like not even wanting to move in together. Like when I go into PMDD, let's just not see each other. Let's avoid each other. But the problem is there's a disconnect because the intimacy is lost in those 2 to 3 weeks that you're not with your partner. And you may get to a point where I've been so many times in relationships where I realize I am compatible with this partner in my follicular phase. We are not compatible in my luteal phase. Like there's almost this bitterness and resentment that partners start to have towards me because I'm not the same person. I'm not showing up as, follicular Rose, and they're trying to pull it out of me and trying to do certain things. And, like maybe if I'm really nice to her, she'll come out, follicular Rose will come out. And I had gotten to a point where I was accepting, who I was and how I was in PMDD in my luteal phase, but my partners weren't. And so it was that fork in the road. It's like, well, how realistic is it to continue this journey if I have to hide who I am as a woman for 2 to 3 weeks out of the month? Like you don't like, and just really having that conversation. And I've had it with exes before, and I'm like, you don't really like me when I'm in PMDD, do you? And I've had them literally say, no, I don't. And that was so hard. I remember initially being offended, like you don't love me. And it's like, no. I love you as a person. I don't like you when you're in PMDD. Like I would never go for a person like that. And I was just like, oh, but they were literally saying, I had to appreciate their honesty. They were not compatible with me. They would not choose me in PMDD. And so then I had to make a choice of like, okay, with this information, if PMDD is not going anywhere and this is going to be my journey of having the ebbs and flows, where does this leave us? And does that mean that they're a bad person? No. I don't think it's like a hateful thing. Like you're a bad person because you don't love the PMDD me. It was just a situation where I don't want to see a partner suffering in silence because they're not getting their needs met at all when I'm in PMDD. So it's almost like I felt like I had to like let them go in a sense.
Yeah. There's so much in that as well, isn't there? There's in both sides. There's so much in it, partner. There's so much in it for you as the one with PMDD, because I think if we just focus on the one with PMDD for the moment, one of the things in that is that I think people either avoid being in relationships because they loathe the part of themselves that has PMDD, so they won't even try, or they get in the relationships and have that kind of dynamic of like they're okay this moment and they're not, and they're kind of desperately wanting their partner to come to them, which creates that like anxious avoidant kind of attachment within the PMDD. But I think one of the big things is that the person who has the PMDD needs to really understand their own strengths and weaknesses and really be able to evaluate who they actually are in the luteal phase, so that they can really see themselves in that space of like, okay, this is follicular Amy. She's creative, she's outgoing, she's charismatic. This is luteal phase Amy. She is introverted, she likes to be by herself, she can get pretty sensitive to say something that doesn't quite fit with her, her traumas really come out in that time. So it's kind of knowing the nuances before you then get into the environment with the person. But then it is also about that communication with that person as well, that honesty and allowing them to kind of see both parts of you and learning how to, within that luteal phase, within that challenge, also meet their needs as well. And that is hard. Like it is a hard thing because, again, predominantly most women who have PMDD have a lot of trauma. And so where your trauma comes out the most is in PMDD, in the luteal phase, and in partnerships with a romantic partner. Yeah. So these two things are that kind of big challenge. And I think that it is something that I've been considering a lot. I think there is, there's space needed for the partners. There's space needed for, the men or the women partners to kind of understand and offload and, figure out how they can not feel like they're walking on eggshells all the time. Because I think that's one of the big challenges in it, that So I've definitely found this in relationships that I've been in before, particularly when I was really deep in my mental health kind of challenge, is that my partner would be like we'd have all these big arguments, and then all of a sudden I was okay. I'm like, why are you not okay with me? I'm okay now. And they're like, but uh, what what the fuck? You know, like what's just happened? Like you've just had all of this, and now you're okay, so now I have to be okay. But you've just been, doing all these things. I don't like to use the word crazy because I know it can feel quite uncomfortable for people. But to them, in a way, it is crazy. It's not that you're crazy, it's that the behavior is so kind of, it can be so erratic that it's like they don't know whether they're coming and going, and we want them to just love us and understand this is PMDD, but it is hard for them as well, isn't it? I think we've had this discussion before within some of the stuff
Yeah.
that you do. It's like it is hard, and we have to find ways to get our needs met from ourselves so that we're not putting everything on them, and that we're learning to be like, I'm in that space where I can't really see the wood through the trees right now. We need to separate from this. And a lot of it does come around in our trauma as well. A lot of it is based around how we deal with trauma, our attachment styles as well.
Yeah, and I think that's why the work that we both do is so important because a
Mm,
lot of the processing that you need to do when you're in PMDD should not be with your partner because they're not skilled in that level of processing PMDD emotions and moods. They're not skilled in it. They don't have experience in it and it's not their fault. But I think the expectation is you're my
mm,
partner, you're my person, you're supposed to be able to help me feel better. So you're putting all of
mm,
this pressure on your partner to do something that they never agreed to do, never know, they don't know what to do. And they're
mm,
feeling very helpless. When I wrote my dissertation, the big percentage of PMDD partners is that they felt helpless, and that led to suicidal ideations. They were
mm,
really so helpless from seeing their partner suffer, feeling from their partner that they weren't being a supportive PMDD partner
mm,
unless they helped them feel better. So they
mm,
felt horrible about themselves and they felt like, I love this person, I adore this person, I want to be with this person, but I'm not able to provide them with what it is that they need. And they're expecting it from me. So
mm,
the work that we
mm,
do when we're working with private clients is
mm,
really helping them process it and taking the pressure off of the partner so that when you come back to reconnect with your partner, you're able to, like you said,
mm,
meet some of their needs and not just saying, I'm in PMDD and you shouldn't expect anything from me while I'm in PMDD for 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. That's not a relationship. That's not
no,
realistic. And it's not the partner's fault for wanting love, affection, and validation, which are the three things that I've mainly seen in partners. They just want love, affection, and validation. That's all they want from the partner.
mm,
And when you're in your follicular phase, you're freely giving it. So they see that you have the capacity to give them what it is that they need. And that's what keeps them in the relationship. A lot of times, they'll be like, you'll see it from the outside looking in, and friends will be like, why don't you just walk away? Why don't you just walk away from her if you're not getting your needs met?
mm,
It's like, no, no, no. When she goes into the follicular phase,
mm,
she's giving me love, she's giving me affection, she's giving me validation. So it's almost like, because I know it's in there, I'm going to stick around for those moments.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that they do need we do need to start putting a lot more weight into how to find the balance of the two, isn't it? Because I think it can be very easy to just be like, it's PMDD. You have to just deal with it. It's PMDD. It's PMDD. But I don't, and I think that we both have this lived experience, and we both know that you can kind of move through it to a high degree. And I think that's the important part there, that you have to, and this is what I always say to all clients, like the onus has to come back to you. This is your life. You are responsible for your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And it's not saying that it's your fault. It's not fair that you have PMDD or that you're currently having these challenges, but it's also not your partner's fault either. And it's not, it's not their responsibility to completely take charge of, it's actually not their responsibility at all to take charge of your emotions. Now, if you're in a partnership, you know, your comrades and your teammates, and you're wanting to support each other along, that is what healthy relationships are about. But what you find, I think, a lot of the time is that there comes a level of codependency within it, where it's like, no, you should be making me feel better right now. You're making me feel worse. And it's like, and then the partner, I always imagine it like the partner's just like and they're just kind of like moving around. I just don't know what to do, and no matter what they do, it's never right. And that's the problem, isn't it? And then we get into this kind of perpetual cycle of, it's like, you're not doing enough, you're making me feel bad because you're saying you're doing things and it's not making me feel better. And it's because, to a certain degree, maybe they can make you feel better in some things, but it's because what you're wanting isn't really them. In that, a lot of what you're wanting is coming from really old stuff. You know, it's that little girl inside of you that didn't get her needs met by her parents, you know, and didn't feel that love and affection, and didn't know how to soothe herself. So you're looking externally for this person to, like, be my parent right now, validate me, soothe me, because you can't do it internally. But it's fleeting because it's coming from the outside, and it needs to be honed on the inside first. And that's why we need to kind of cut off from the partner in that respect and start dealing with ourselves. But it is hard on the partner in that as well, because it's them also knowing, because I think, you know, to a certain degree, because it can become quite codependent, the partner also can become the enabler of the situation, and they start to enable that behavior because they also want to rescue them from it, but they're not to be rescued. You know, if you're, you know, sometimes in situations people do need to be rescued, but generally speaking, we're looking at a consistent dynamic of a relationship, and you do not need to be rescued. You do not need to be the rescuer. They need to be helping themselves, and you can find that dance of helping them. You know, if they're wanting to cry and they need to talk, then talk. But it's the pulling, isn't it? It's the, no, you need to help me right now, you're the problem. That's where we start getting the issue there, because it's not a healthy conflict resolution argument. It's you help me, and if you don't help me, I'm not going to be okay. And they don't know how to do it, and then we're just constantly in this dance for days because we're in PMDD.
And I think there's so much in what you said. And I always tell private clients, don't start where you cannot sustain. Meaning,
Yeah.
don't start being there for your partner in a way that you're neglecting your own needs, your own emotional, physical needs, psychological needs, and you're putting yourself to the side, because it's not sustainable. You're going to burn out. And then when they go back to get more from you and you don't give it to them, there's this combativeness. And it's like, how come you're not doing it? You used to do it. Like, I used to be able to dump everything on you and not meet any of your needs, and you used to be fine. You used to act fine. But at some point, they start looking around and was like, wait a minute, I'm always there for you. I'm not asking you to do anything for me. When you go into PMDD, I put my needs to the side. I don't ask you for anything. But then the one time they go to ask you for something and you're in PMDD and you're like, no, I don't feel like it. I'm in PMDD. They're like, there's this bitterness and resentment, because they're like, I'm always there for you. I'm always putting my needs to the side. How come you can't do it when you're in PMDD if I can do it, over here? And the other thing that you said about the childhood trauma and the little girl, I've been really open about my childhood trauma, specifically the last couple of episodes. And I was that, woman that was getting into those modes, specifically when I was in PMDD, of like a little girl and wanting to be treated with such compassion and gentleness, and just play with me and love me and just, be kind and nice, and expecting my partner to flip and to be that person for me, because you think, oh, you're my person, you're my everything, you're my source. And I realized I can't make my partner my source when I get into that childhood trauma, because you're right. It's not that I want necessarily a partner. I want an authority figure to just cover me and take care of me. And that's a void that I have. So if I need to go to my tools for my childhood trauma instead of depending on a partner, and it comes out every single time I'm in PMDD, no matter how much I quote unquote heal on it. So it's a matter of, okay, when I go into PMDD, I have to know that these are the tools that I have. My source is over here. And then that way, when I go towards my partner, I'm not putting all that pressure on them.
Mm. Yeah, and it it's funny. It's a really funny thing because I mean I totally agree with you, and I've definitely been there. I'm not wanting a husband. I'm wanting a daddy. Like I'm wanting a mama, and I'm wanting a daddy. I'm wanting someone to give me the love that I didn't feel I got as a child, and that's the painful part, isn't it? And I think that it can sound like such a harsh thing to say, but this is why in my personal opinion, I think when you really find out that you have PMDD or you have this sort of thing, unless you're already married and you're in that kind of dynamic, if you are single, stay single and work on it as much as you can by yourself first, so that you really start to know the triggers, the traumas, the pain, so that when you get into it, because then there will come a point where you will start getting into it and think more things will start coming up. But at least give yourself that fighting chance, to really understand yourself first. And I think, that when you're in them dynamics, it's also you start realizing what you said. It is sad. It's sad because what happens is we realize, oh, like I never got that. I never got that love. I never got what it's something that I've been pondering on a lot recently, like that life is actually really unfair. And that no matter how much we want life to be fair, and I think we're kind of conditioned to perceive that life is meant to be fair. It's like when kids do things, it's like, oh no, play fair, do this fair. But life actually isn't fair. You don't choose to be born into a loving family or a family that is loving. You don't choose to have PMDD or not. It just kind of is what it is. And there are many kind of belief structures on, destiny and or randomization of like how things come into play in life. But fundamentally, the essence is that it wasn't your choice to be born into a family that kind of neglected you or whatever happened. But now it's like you have to come into that space of realizing that even though it wasn't your choice, it's over. And you have to grieve that. You have to grieve the loss. You have to really give yourself that the ability to acknowledge this is really, really, really sad for me. I really need this compassion because I didn't get something that I should have got. And now start to move on from it. Now, how can I parent myself? How can I love myself in this space and give myself what I really do deserve, which is a happy life? Because you deserve it. We all deserve that. And we get stuck in that place of wanting something that we're never going to get. And the only person that can now give it to us is us, which is painful to realize. But once we can go into that place where it's like, this is crap, it's not fair, we can grieve it, and then we can stand in this present moment and say, what can I do? How can I take back my autonomy and my power right now and start making some moves to give myself what I didn't get in the right space so that I can actually have a relationship that I'm not codependent in or trying to get needs met that never got met as a child.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. I feel like
that makes perfect sense because I went to this healing retreat a couple of weeks ago, specifically for my childhood trauma and the breakup and everything. And I immersed myself, and one of the exercises where we were journaling every day, and we had these journal prompts and all these things. And one of the things that was a breakthrough moment for me, like literally, I call it like a breakthrough moment, because I literally broke down when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, a lot of times what I came up with was you can't go back to the same people that hurt you in order to heal you. And that was me. I kept going back to the people that hurt me. Like if my partner hurt my feelings, I would go back and say, no, you need to heal me. You need to make me feel better. Or if my parents weren't there for me, I immediately said, you need to be a parent. You need to do it. And it's like when you when you said you just have to take the responsibility off of everybody else and say, okay, this is on me, then I can unplug. I can unplug from all of these other sources and plug into myself. You never really start looking at yourself and working on yourself internally as to what you're going through if you're consistently looking outward for someone else to heal you. If you're looking outward, you're not looking inward. But when you stop looking outward, if you stop looking at your partner as they're the problem, they're the problem. If you stop even looking at PMDD and saying PMDD is the problem, look inside of yourself and see what comes up. See what's below the surface of that. And all of these individuals that have PMDD, we all have different things under it that are traumatic. But it's a different level of trauma. And we have to see, okay, is this childhood trauma? Is this past relationship trauma? Is this past sexual trauma? Is this, past trauma with coworkers? Like there's different things that can come up. But if we're so busy looking outward, we're not really looking inward where we really need to be doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the painful part, isn't it? That's definitely, I've definitely experienced that many, many times, because I really believe in the whole thing of like rock bottoms and how rock bottoms really do propel you up. And I've had many, in my life, I really have had many, but they've always been so painful because it's like, it's taken the power back. And when you realize, oh, I'm an adult and I've made yes, these things have happened, but I'm now causing constant destruction in my own life, and I have to take this back. And I think that it's scary for people to do that. I think sometimes it's easier to be like, no, it's this, no, it's this, no, it's this, because we're afraid. But if you really, really want life to change, that is what you have to do. You really do have to start looking and being like, this is where I'm at. This is the truth of my story. This is the chaos in my life, and start looking at what can I do to start helping myself in this position. Because, you can have a partner who seems absolutely amazing, but nothing is sure in life. It doesn't mean that they're going to be there in a few years, but you are always going to be with yourself. Whether you like it or not, you're always going to be living with yourself. So it's like, you need to make yourself your best friend. You need to make yourself the one that you can turn to, the one that can be your cheerleader when you're having a crappy day, and that can hold you. And that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of us with PMDD, we have our internal world is not a nice place. It's a place full of monsters. It's a place full of horrible voices and horrible memories and really toxic emotions. And that's the bit, this is a huge part of what I do with clients, starting to create the safety inside, that kind, loving voice inside, the voice of compassion. And there's a word for it and I can't think of what it is now, just like unconditional positive regard, which is what a mother is meant to do, right? Is meant to give you unconditional positive regard, like a father is meant to help direct you and create order in your life. And when we don't have that, there is just a lot of internal chaos and pain because we have horrible voices and we have no direction, which is a lot of what we have most of the time inside ourselves. And that's what scares people. It's like, where do I even begin?
Yeah, so I know that everyone listening knows what I do as far as relationships are concerned, stopping the PMDD monthly breakups, dealing with trauma, attachment styles, PMDD rage, intrusive thoughts, all of the things. But before we end this episode, tell everybody what it is that you do, how you work with your private clients, because I know yours is really good because you work on an individual basis too. So for those individuals that may be single and may be needing those services, what is it that you do specifically for PMDD individuals?
Yeah. So specifically, like the main focus that we start with at the beginning is starting to create that safe place. And really, I take women through healing their traumas cyclically and starting to break down their belief structures that keep them stuck, working on. And an example is, changing Hell Week to Learning Week, starting to really focus on, okay, what mindsets are affecting me right now? and starting to build that safe space inside, working on different techniques, breath work, meditation, different outward habits that we can shift. It's very nuanced to the person, their life, because that's the thing. This isn't a one size fits all. Everyone is of different ages with different responsibilities and different lifestyles, but it's really about me teaching you how to help yourself and heal your traumas from within, because it is, we can use the beauty of our cycles to heal ourselves as women. And so yeah, that's really what I teach.
Perfect. So I'm going to have Amy's information in the show notes so you can reach out to her and her website and her Instagram and everything like that. But until next time, we got this.
We've got this.
I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.